Good morning. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing our opening hymn, which is number 112, Do You Hear? It's in the gray hymnal, and the lyrics will be on the screen as well. Do you hear, oh my friend, in the place where you stand, through the sky, through the land? Do you hear, in the heights, on the plain, in the vale, on the main, in the sun, in the rain? Do you hear, through the roar, through the rush, through the throng, through the crush? Do you hear in the hush of your soul, of your soul? Hear the cry, fear once still, hear the heart's call to will, hear a sigh, startling trill in your soul, in your soul. From the place where you stand to the outermost strand, do you hear, oh my friend? Do you hear, all the dreams, all the dares, all the sighs, all the prayers? They are yours, mine and theirs. Do you hear, Please be seated. Our prelude this morning is by Cheryl Soapagaham, who is Cree from the Little Red River Cree Nation in northern Alberta. And she wrote the text and the music, the tune, and the choral arrangement for the piece we're going to sing. And it is in the Woodland Cree dialect, and I just want to share the translation with you. It's listen to the land. We must take care of it together. It teaches us many things.
Ah This is a prayer for all the travelers, for the ones who start out in beauty, who fall from grace, who step gingerly, looking for the way back. And for those who are born into the margins, who travel from one liminal space to another, crossing boundaries in search of center.
Esta oración es para todos los viajeros, para los que comienzan en la belleza y caen de la gracia, quienes caminan tímidamente buscando la manera de volver. Y para los que nacen en los márgenes, viajando de un lugar liminal al otro, cruzando fronteras en busca del centro.
This is a prayer for the ones whose births are a passing from darkness to darkness, who all their lives are drawn toward the light. And for those whose journeys are a winding road that begins and ends in the same place, though only when the journey is completed do they finally know where they are.
Esta oración para aquellos cuyo nacimiento es el paso de oscuridad a oscuridad, aquellos que se sienten atraídos por la luz y avanzan hacia ella, y para aquellos cuyas jornadas son un camino sinuoso que comienza y termina en el mismo lugar, aunque solo al terminar sabrán por fin dónde están.
For all the travelers, young and old, aching and joyful, weary and full of life, the ones who are here and the ones who are not here, the ones who are like you and they are all like you, and the ones who are different, for in some ways we each travel alone.
Para todos los viajeros, jóvenes y viejos, dolientes y alegres, candados y llenos de vida, los presentes y los ausentes, los que son como tú, y todos son como tú, y los que son distintos, porque de alguna manera todos viajamos solos.
This is a prayer for traveling mercies and sure-footedness, for bread for your body and spirit, for water, for your safe arrival, and for everyone you see along the way.
Esta es una oración por la misericordia, para que anden con pie firme y visión clara por el agua, para que lleguen seguro y para todos aquellos que encuentran en el camino.
May the light of our chalice this morning give light and warmth to our community when we are joyful and when we despair. And may we feel the warmth spread from our circle to wider and wider circles until all know they belong to the one circle of life. Good morning. It is so good to see you. Oh, I heard a nice little voice over here. Good morning. Welcome to the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, or ERUUF, as we like to say. My name is Reverend Jacqueline Brett. I'm the lead minister here, and whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever your race, your gender identities, whomever you love, and wherever you are on your spiritual journey or in your search for truth, meaning, and liberation, we welcome you here in beloved community. If you are visiting with us for the first or perhaps even the second time, I invite you to rise in body or spirit so that we might give you a hearty ERUUF welcome. Yes. And for those of you who are online, we also welcome our UU siblings from Western North Carolina, as well as our new friends from Honduras. Welcome. And if you have available to you a chat box, place your name in the chat box and someone will certainly welcome you there as well. Let's turn around and say hello to all the folks who are visiting with us this morning. Great. So for those of you who are visiting with us, know that at 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings, we hold a class called Inquirers for visitors and newcomers in the building right next door. It's an opportunity to get to know a little bit about us and also to share a little bit about yourself as well and meet some of the folks here who make all of this happen. I want to announce that we are continuing throughout this month and next month as well in our collection of supplies and funds for the people of Western North Carolina. We have over 4 congregations there, and they have all been impacted by Hurricane Helene, and you'll hear a little bit more about that during the collection, but please keep that in mind. You can come to the office at any time during the week when we're open from 10 to 4, Monday through Thursday, and drop off goods that you have. But please go to our news section of the website so that you know precisely what they need, not necessarily what we want to give, but what they need. So please take a look at that list because it's very important. They actually don't have the ability to take in certain things that we might think is necessary, but they can't process those things. So it's very important that we're, doing what they ask. One of the things to know, and I think some of you already know this and have maybe received some emails about it, we are an early voting site, which is a wonderful thing. The Board of Elections is moving in here tomorrow in the fellowship hall. If you have anything that needs to be gathered from the fellowship hall, you must get it today. We will not have access to that building. The locks will be changed, and we have to. And I'm sure you will appreciate this. We must do our part in protecting the integrity of the vote. Right? Can I get an amen? Yes. Yes. So get your stuff today, y'all, okay? Or else you're just going to miss out. I mean, do not harass our staff about this starting tomorrow. I mean it, because that has happened, and we really can't have that happening. The Board of Elections has really underscored this with us. So let's not give them a hard time either. We don't want any questions about what happened at ERUUF with the vote. So over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be acknowledging a very important group here at ERUUF, and they actually are independent somewhat and not independent. It is the Eno River Fellowship Foundation, and the foundation has been responsible for many things that we see here, both on our grounds of our campus, as well as some of the wonderful programming here. So this week and next week is our foundation weeks, and so here to talk about the foundation this morning are Flynn McSherry, who is treasurer of the foundation, and then Christy Chilton, who will talk about one of the programs that we've had. Flynn?
Morning, everyone, and welcome to everyone online. I'm Flynn McSherry, as Reverend Jacqueline said, and I serve on the board of the Eno River Fellowship Foundation. And 35 years ago now, some amazing members of ERUUF got together and created an endowment to help this beloved community remain vibrant both during and well beyond their lifetimes. The foundation board manages the endowment, which exists only to financially support ERUUF and its mission. All the donations to the endowment are permanently invested, and only a small portion of the interest and the growth can be spent each year. Grants are awarded annually for special initiatives and campus enhancements from the aptly named Initiatives and Enhancements Fund. Foundation grants provided our beautiful chalice, some of the sanctuary audiovisual upgrades you see, part of the solar panels on our care building next door, and initiatives like the Flipping Cancer program, the Visiting Artist program you've seen in the gallery, and our great new house band that you heard last Sunday's service. Yeah. Later in the service, you'll hear from Sara about the Honduras Migrant Justice Group, which is also being helped by a foundation grant. So one foundation grant that holds special meaning for me is the Transgender Inclusion in Congregations workshops. With my child's blessing, I'll share that my husband, Clinton, and I have a biological daughter who began taking testosterone a number of years ago and self-identifies now as queer. And I am incredibly proud of their brave journey to become their authentic self. In 2021, I participated in ERUUF's first Transgender Inclusion in Congregations workshop, and it was a very timely and transformative experience for me. Everything I heard and read was filtered through my personal experience being the parent of a much beloved queer child and holding their physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being as my deepest wish. I continue to hold my child, hope my child will find a community like ERUUF that can feed their spirit and where they'll feel welcomed and accepted for who they are. That workshop is but one of the many reasons that I've come to really love this community and want to continue to see it flourish and to transform more lives. So to help that happen, Clint and I have chosen to include gifts to the foundation in our wills. Several members of the foundation board will be at a table in the fellowship hall after service, and we hope that you will stop by with your questions or just to say hello. And now I'd like to introduce you to Christy Chilton, who's here to talk about another foundation grant that's had a big impact at ERUUF, the Faith Forward Initiative.
Thank you, Flynn, and good morning, everyone. I'm a longtime member of ERUUF, having joined in early 1998. I made the decision to join fairly quickly, and while I was proud to add my name to the book, the two courses that were offered at the time, UU 101 and UU 201, did not do a lot to help me fully understand or engage with congregational life. Fast forward 20 years to early 2018, when I was serving as chair of the Board of Trustees and Reverend Jacqueline was minister in charge of congregational engagement. We were invited to attend a webinar about a curriculum that was developed by the First Unitarian Church of Dallas called Faith Forward, From Visitor to Leader. I remember well how intrigued and excited Reverend Jacqueline was after that call, and I knew she would pursue it with her usual energy and attention to detail. Shortly thereafter, we applied for a grant from the foundation for $3,800, which would cover the subscription cost for the first 2 years. The purchase of this curriculum enabled ERUUF to offer a number of adult education classes, as well as the Inquirer series that Reverend Jacqueline mentioned earlier. That series is a series of 8 courses that are offered continuously on Sunday throughout the program year and occasionally on all-day retreats. The series lays a foundation for those considering membership and has been a huge success. Since the program's inception, 270 people have taken at least one of these classes, and 244 members have joined ERUUF. Thanks to the program, they enter into membership feeling much more prepared and engaged than I did when I joined. I've been told that the classes have a number of repeat attendees who get something different from the class each time as well. ERUUF is now able to fund the annual subscription through its operating budget, and we remain deeply grateful to the foundation for enabling the launch of this program.
Come on down. I want to invite all of our smaller, our mediumest, our tallest people. Schmedium, apparently I need to say schmedium people. to come on down here and listen. Young at heart, welcome as well. Come on, scoot around. We got some room here, sweetie. So today's book is called A Journey Toward Hope. And in this book, this is a story of 4 children who leave some of their families in Central America and take a really long journey by themselves to the United States. And it's based on the real-life experiences of many children who have made this hard trip. So parts of the story are a little bit sad, but it's important for us to hear this story because there are lots of children in Durham and in these surrounding areas who may have come to the U.S. in this very way. So 10-year-old Alessandra says goodbye to the rippling waters of Lake Petnitza in Guatemala. She tries to remember her mother, who left 4 years ago, hugging Alessandra close before she went, who promised to send for her as soon as there was money. "I'm coming to meet you, Mama," Alessandra says softly as she walks away from the water's edge. Laura is 13, and she wants to go to school. Nando is 7, and he likes trains. They wish that they could stay in El Salvador, but their parents want them to live with their aunt and uncle in the United States. "I don't want to leave," Nando says through tears. "I'll be with you," Nando replies. "We can be strong together." In San Pedro Sula, Honduras, 14-year-old Rodrigo's friends are doing things that they shouldn't be doing. They want him to join them, but he refuses. So he kneels next to his sleeping little sister. If he tells her that he is leaving, she will beg him to stay. "I'm going to join our parents in Nebraska. Soon we will all be together and be happy." Rodrigo leaves the note on the pillow near her head and walks out of the house. Rodrigo and Alessandra, they meet in El Cebo as they are about to cross into Mexico. So they have been walking for a very long time. "Masa locul," she says. "Good morning. Are you going to America?" "Hello," Rodrigo answers. "I am. You too." Laura and Nando, though, are going by boat. Halfway across the Suchiata River, Laura slips on the edge of the craft and tumbles into the rushing water. "Laura," Nando screams, reaching for her fingertips, "don't leave me!" A stranger lifts her back into the boat, and Nando hugs her tight. They finally make it to dry land, exhausted. They are now in Mexico. And now the 4 children are going to meet. So at a shelter in Oaxaca, the 4 children huddle on the same cardboard mattress. Even though they just met, they pass the night together like family. Nando's belly growls. "Was that a jaguar?" Laura asks with a forced laugh. "Yuk inso kayak," Alessandra says, rubbing her stomach. Rodrigo nods. Everybody understands hunger. "We'll find something to eat soon. Tomorrow we ride La Bestia," the beast, or the train. "Run and climb onto the train when it slows at the curve," Alessandra yells as La Bestia approaches. Nando sprints with everything he has. He is the smallest, but he is also the fastest. One day he will be a track star. As Rodrigo leaps for the iron ladder, his shoe tumbles down and it is sliced in half by the wheels of the train. But he makes it on. They all do. The throwers surprise them. with bundles of bread, crackers, and bottles of water. They throw other things onto the train, too: a sweater, doll, shoes. Some of the throwers have also sent their own children on the journey toward hope. They help these children now, praying that others will do the same for their kids. Laura combines the throwers' gifts to make a proper meal: bread, cheese, soda, lemonade. She will be a chef one day, just like her mother. For one beautiful moment, the children feel strong again. In Mexico City, the kids hop off the train and they find themselves in the largest market they have ever seen. It is loud, a frenzy of color and energy and unfamiliar words. Here, some people are kind. A woman gives Rodrigo a pair of shoes that fit his bare, blistered feet. Others give them a mango, a loaf of bread, a bar of soap. The next day, the children climb back onto La Bestia, the train. It is very crowded. They squeeze into whatever space they can find. A man crawls along the top of a covered train car. He fell down when the train moved suddenly, and his leg is bleeding. Rodrigo tears a strip off his shirt and wraps the wound. One day, he will be a doctor. Nando's voice cuts through the darkness. It will be worth all of this, right? What will? Alessandra asks. The future on the other side, he replies. Of course, in America we will go to school and always have enough to eat, and we will be with our families. Alessandra answers, and they all want to believe her. Finally, the train ride ends. A man with warm eyes and a gentle voice gives them and others a ride in the back of his pickup truck. As Rodrigo talks to the man through the window, Alessandra sees thousands of monarch butterflies migrating in the other direction. She pictures infinity in her mind. She sees the history of her ancestors, the Mayans, and feels their strength flowing through her. She will become an artist. At the Nuevo Laredo camp in Mexico, across the Rio Grande, from Laredo, Texas, the children gaze at the United States for the first time. Tomorrow, they will cross the bridge and ask for asylum. The members of this new family formed during their journey will have to go their separate ways. But that is tomorrow. Tonight they dream. Alessandra hums her mother's favorite song. Nando and Laura snuggle close and tell each other jokes. Rodrigo laughs in his sleep, and tonight they hope. So thank you for joining me in the story. In the rest of this service, your parents are actually going to hear from people who went to Honduras and learned all about why people leave. So what I want you all to do is when you go home today, I want you to ask your parents what they learned in service today, okay? Can you all do that? All right, now go off to religious exploration and have some fun.
Especially someone you maybe don't know.
I invite you to join me now in a moment of meditation and prayers of concerns and joys. I'm not going to start until you stop speaking, Michael. Let's all take a deep breath in and let it out. Spirit of life and love that weaves its way throughout all of us and among us and between us. We lift up all the concerns of people near and far, beset by flood, by fire, and all the many results of climate change. May each and all receive the relief they need with all great speed. We lift up the concerns of all those suffering from the many results of war and violence and all its complexities in Lebanon, in Gaza, in Israel, in the Sudan, in the Ukraine, and the many other places, both near and far. We lift up those who are on the road, on a journey, migrating from border to border, facing great difficulties and dangers, courageous hearts filled with hope. May all receive the respite they need, the peace they need, the resources and comfort they need. And we lift up our collective concerns for our leaders and would-be leaders. May it be pressed upon their and our hearts to act for the highest good of the all beings everywhere, not simply the few. Finally, we lift up the unspoken concerns of those in our own community, those beset by illness, by grief, by worry, and any concern whatsoever. May all receive what they need, and may we all be a support to those who need it. And finally, we lift up joy. Joy because it shores up our resilience, beckons us toward gratitude, allows us to know that there is more than sorrow, and that it is joy that allows our hearts to rest, if even for a moment. And so we lift up the joy of birthdays, of anniversaries, and celebrations. May we each experience the blessing of finding a delight, even the tiniest delight, on this very day. And may we each find a joy and remember to be a joy to someone else. Amen, Ashe, and may it be so.
Our meditation hymn today is Spirit of Life. It's number 123 in the gray hymnal, and the lyrics are on the screen. We're going to sing it once in English and then once in Spanish, and the Spanish lyrics are on the screen. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the
Take a look at that map. Isn't it amazing to think that people travel that far to get here? It is quite a ways. And quite a number of borders, yes? Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron writes that no matter what comes along, we're always standing at the center of the world, in the middle of sacred space, and everything that comes into that circle and exists with us there has come to teach us what we need to know. 2 weeks ago, was it 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks? 3 weeks ago. 2? 3? A few weeks ago, a delegation of ERUUFians, as well as 2 members of the Community Church of Chapel Hill and a staff member from the UU College of Social Justice, along with myself, traveled to Honduras to participate in a week-long seminar led by the Cristóbal Global School of Human Rights, an organization that focuses specifically on human rights in Northern Central America. Cristóbal's goal is to bring folks like us together with Central Americans to, as they say, develop skills, strengthen relationships, and build bridges across cultures and borders, and to also equip and support those who participate in their works for democracy, justice, and peace by applying the principles of human rights to their relationships, ministries, and activism. We spent a week doing just that as we went there to learn about the root causes of migration from that area to this area of the world. Those from ERUUF who participated began this journey in 2019 before the pandemic, when Sam Wones, a member here, first suggested this as an area that we might want to explore. They began working and had to slow down some of their goals as we had this event happen called the pandemic. And so they engaged in learning in a different way, and then they applied for and were awarded a grant from our Eno River Foundation to continue with this project. And though we were not awarded funds for travel or for participation in the seminar itself, the work we participated in with Cristóbal will greatly inform our work on immigration as this project proceeds. I must say that this group that became a subgroup of our refugee and immigration action group from our justice ministry. And tell me again what? So it's the Latin American Migration Team. That's what they became. And not everybody was able to go on the trip, but they were still part of the team nonetheless. It was a very immersive and interactive program in which we grew in our understanding and insight, and in relationship with one another. We really formed some stories that you should ask some of us to tell you some of those stories sometime, but also with those we met. We learned by listening deeply, first as we were the ones who had to wear headsets all the time, or most of the time, as people spoke in their native language. And we had a wonderful interpreter who translated for us in English. One of our first lessons was that migration is a very human act that actually takes place all the time. They asked us to share, and we listened to our own stories of ancestral migrations from other shores to this country. We also listened to some of our stories of forced migration due to violence and oppression, such as, for me, the Atlantic slave trade forced upon my ancestors. or even the Great Migration of African Americans during the 1920s through 1970s who were escaping violence and depression here in the South. And now the reverse migration of people such as myself back to the South. We learned by listening deeply to the stories of the many, many people we met, harrowing stories of courage and great resilience, stories that sometimes made me want to weep, and sometimes I did indeed cry. But also stories that made me appreciate the great love and courage of those we met, to spend time with them in joy-filled moments, sipping coffee, laughing, and even dancing. Most importantly, though, we were invited into an exercise to determine how we would begin to apply what we learned to our lives, to not simply engage in acquiring intellectual knowledge or fact-finding, but to apply our new understanding to ourselves, to embody what we've learned by taking action here at ERUUF, here in North Carolina, and in the United States overall. What you're about to hear are the experience of those from our congregation who participated on this delegation, not only what they learned, but how they were impacted. In her powerful poem called Home, the British Somali poet Worcestershire writes, "You have to understand, no one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land. Who would choose to spend days and nights in the stomach of a truck unless the miles traveled meant something more than journey? No one would leave home unless home chased you to the shore, unless home tells you to leave what you could not behind, even if it was human. No one leaves home until home is a damp voice in your ear saying, 'Leave, run now. I don't know what I've become.'" I invite you to listen deeply.
Good morning. I'm Peggy Schaeffer. Before I went to Honduras, I could just barely find it on a map, and now I know a little bit more. Let me tell you what stuck with me most. Although we were comfortable and safe in an air-conditioned hotel room most of the time in San Pedro Sula, we learned a lot from people working tirelessly for justice. Our speakers were Hondurans, human rights activists and lawyers, youth organizers, a celebrated journalist, as well as a small-town mayor and village women. Through them, we heard about the pervasiveness of violence in Honduras. For example, 87% of the government budget is spent on the military and the police, which has convinced people that they need the military in the streets. All Hondurans can have 5 weapons. Organized crimes, gangs, and police corruption persist with impunity. 80% of crimes are not investigated. There is no accountability. Corruption is the operating system. One of our speakers stated, "The government is in criminal hands." He also said, "I'm here now, but I'm not sure I will get home tonight." We were told that people prefer to die on the migration journey rather than at the hands of gangsters at home. But here's the thing. All the Hondurans we met were overwhelmingly polite and gentle and gracious in every interaction. The culture we saw was friendly and warm, and there were many times that we shared jokes and laughter with our new Honduran friends. And there was definitely a lot of joy and exuberance in the dancing crowd at a market we visited, and you can ask Reverend Jacqueline to tell you more about that. The other big thing that struck me was the huge impact on the home country of all the returning would-be migrants who fail in their efforts to get to the U.S. Thousands are returned by plane from the U.S.
to San Pedro Sula, the city we were in. Every month, I had no idea of the scale of this. 3,000 to 4,000 Hondurans are deported back to the U.S. 56,000 were returned last year. They return impoverished and often homeless. They've sold everything, borrowed money, and all to finance their migration. So the country suffers because they've lost so much of their workforce to migration. And they also have the added burden of the returnees. People have risked everything, and now they're in debt, humiliated, and displaced upon their return, and some are disabled or traumatized by their events on their arduous journey. Governments, both here and there, see immigration from a focus of safety, not from the perspective of human rights. But as a community organizer who spoke to us said, "What danger does a man with a small backpack pose?" When I asked our speakers, what should we do when we go home? They said, make people aware of these problems. Tell everyone we are not bad people. And when you leave, feel hope.
I'm Glen Alfredson, and my topic is children, not women and children. During classroom sessions at Global School of Human Rights, we learned that children in Honduras face a web of challenges. Root causes like child poverty, violence, limited access to education and health care. These trigger side effects like migration and separated families. An estimated 75% of Honduran children live below UNICEF's poverty line. Poverty limits access to adequate food, clean water, and safe housing, and forces children into child labor. Poverty and despair breed gang activity and domestic violence. Most notably, gangs forcibly recruit teens who are attacked or killed unless they flee or join. Children are traumatized by the violence around them. Public education in Honduras is nominally free and compulsory through age 15, but that's not enforced, and only around half complete 9th grade. Commuting distances are a barrier, particularly for secondary schools, and particularly in rural areas. The cost of uniforms, school supplies, and transportation are a challenge for parents, and many teens leave school to work. We met several mothers from a town more than 2 hours from the nearest high school. That town's teens have to live away from home to attend high school, which is something many parents can't afford. One mother of 3 talented students told us that her oldest child, a middle schooler, wants to attend high school, but the family doesn't have enough money. Without financial help, that daughter will take a job. That way, she can at least pay for her younger siblings to go to high school when they reach the age. These root causes, plus others like climate change, are triggering significant migration within Honduras. One seminar participant described how his family fled to another city when a gang targeted him as a teen. 2 years later, the cycle repeated, and they moved again. Jobs are difficult to find in the rural communities where children are sometimes safer, but the unskilled jobs near cities where jobs are easier to find, they don't pay enough to provide safe living conditions for children. So spouses and children often remain behind. Although migration abroad is more dangerous and difficult, many parents eventually do that. They head north and send money home to their families. 1 million Hondurans are currently living in the U.S. Remittances home make up roughly a quarter of Honduras' economy. Children depend on that money. Because of poverty, violence, and other root causes, an estimated 43% of Honduran children are separated from one or both parents. So, what has changed in me as a result of global school? As a young adult, nearly 4 decades ago, I traveled to 3 countries in Central America, where I witnessed war, poverty, and most of all, resilience. A seed of interest was planted, but I returned home to family and career, and nothing sprouted. 4 months ago, I finally returned to Central America, traveling with my adult son. Our hearts were inspired by the kindness and determination of adults and by the contagious joy and optimism of children. And now, 3 months after that, Global School has provided knowledge, direction, and community. For me, it's now time to begin making a difference in the lives of the amazing people of Central America, especially the children.
Good morning, I'm John Chase. For Hondurans and other migrants, the journey north is unbelievably dangerous. Until a few years ago, I did not know this. I would see pictures on TV of caravans walking up dusty roads, and I thought to myself, well, it's a long walk up those dusty roads. But there are probably people helping you along the way with food and water. It's hard, but it's not that bad. Then we in the Migration Justice Group read this book. It's called The Beast. The Beast is the colloquial name for the train that migrants ride from south to north. You saw the train on the children's story this morning. They jump on the train. If they're lucky, they make it to the top of the train. They can fall off the train. They can lose an arm or a leg when the train runs over them. If they are lucky enough to get to the top of the train, they still face being beaten and robbed, being victims of sexual assault by other migrants, by gangs that are on the train, by the locals who take advantage of the migrants. These people are willing to make this journey, to leave the horrible conditions that they experience at home. The threats, the murders, the kidnappings, the lack of food, the lack of health care. When a gang member knocks on your door and says that he's taking your house or that he's taking your son. When I spoke about this book at one of the early meetings that we had in San Pedro Sula, A young Honduran man who was there with us reported that he had attempted to ride the beast 5 times, but he was unsuccessful. His brother, who was with him, is still missing. After that particular session was over, I went over to that young man. I clasped his hand in my hands. Our eyes met, and somehow I think our hearts met. This is why we travel. We are there with the people, feeling them in our heart.
Good morning. I'm Ann Tomalin. The many things that we learned about during the seminar in Honduras, something that particularly impressed me was the commendable efforts of ordinary Hondurans to provide support and opportunities for young people who have few options or resources for building safe, healthy, and sustainable lives in their country. They're doing what they can to give youth more hope and motivate them to stay in Honduras rather than risking the dangerous journey north. We met some young adults who are part of a nonprofit volunteer organization called Convergencia Juvenil, Una Generación con Voz, which means Youth Convergence, a generation with a voice, whose mission is to defend the human rights of young people who have experienced internal displacement due to the violence in their local communities, and young people who are returned migrants. They strive to build a network of mutual support and empower youth to advocate for social, political, and economic changes necessary for them to be able to build a better future in their country. They offer workshops in topics like human rights, advocacy, strategic planning, psychology, and effective communication, which not only help them do the work of the organization, but are also valuable for achieving their own personal goals. Some of the volunteers are returned migrants themselves. One of them, that John mentioned, he told us that he'd made 5 attempts to migrate to the US, and that the experience of riding on the beast was even worse than we had heard. But the good news is now he's a leader in this organization, and he's helping fellow returnees. We had a conversation with a young woman called Larissa, who is the president of the organization. She told us about her failed attempt to migrate to the US with her young children and the challenges that she faced as a returnee. Like many, she came back with no money and no home to go to. Several years later, she and her children are doing better. They're all living with her mother, and the children are progressing in school. But Larissa still hasn't found a job. However, she said that she is determined to stay in her home country and build a life for herself there and do what she can to make it a better place to live. Another change agent we met was a returnee who lives in the small town of Tegucigalpita, where there's no local school for the students after 9th grade. He coordinates an effort to develop a vocational training program in the town so that youth can learn things like plumbing, auto mechanics, HVAC installation, sewing clothes, and baking, practical skills that they could make a living with. The dedication of these volunteers speaks to the people-centered value system that is typical of Latin American cultures and something that I wish our society would emulate. Hondurans are investing their time and energy to improve the lives of youth in their country with very limited resources at their disposal. I believe they deserve our support.
Good morning. I'm Julie Edmunds. So the workshop really brought home to me this idea that migration is kept in place by broader systems that are undergirded by significant financial incentives. So many groups benefit financially from having the migratory routes open and active exactly as they are today. To explore some of these incentives, let's follow the money a bit. So first, the families and the government of Honduras benefit financially. The large number of migrants who make it to the U.S. and work send much of the money that they have earned back to their families. And this can dramatically increase the quality of living for many Hondurans. One woman who we have known for 16 years is very proud that she has been able to buy her mother in Honduras a very nice house in a safe region of the country. This money that is sent back to Honduras, as Glen said, is called remittances, and that totals over $9 billion annually, which is almost a third of the Honduran GDP. And the Honduran government plans for these funds when they are creating their annual budget. There are also groups that profit from the travel of migrants. So coyotes, or smugglers of people, will charge around $10,000 to take a person to the United States. And people will often sell their houses, cars, and land to raise money for the trip. So we did not hear much from our hosts about how the current system of migration also benefits the United States. However, some research on our end shows that the U.S. has substantial financial incentives to keep the current system in place. So many industries, as you probably know, depend on undocumented workers. Around a third of agricultural workers are undocumented.
Other fields with over a fifth of their workers as undocumented include grounds maintenance people, food preparation, textile, apparel and furnishings, and construction. Undocumented workers also contribute far more in taxes than they draw down in benefits. A nonpartisan tax policy organization estimated that undocumented immigrants paid almost $100 billion in federal, state, and local taxes in 2022, with North Carolina receiving $692 million. Social Security and Medicare are partially kept afloat by undocumented immigrants who pay into the system, but are likely never to receive benefits. For example, in 2022, undocumented immigrants paid $26 billion in Social Security taxes. A third of the taxes that are paid by undocumented immigrants went to support services that they are prohibited by law from receiving. Basically, all of us in this room benefit from the system as it is, right? We like our strawberries, our apples, our pickles, our cheaper and very well done house repairs or gardening. And any of us, and many of us in this room, receiving federal benefits such as Social Security and Medicare benefit directly from the surplus contributions provided by undocumented immigrants. All of this is to say that it's complicated. Large-scale system actors like governments and businesses benefit, but so do individuals like the families in Honduras who are receiving remittances. Some of these benefits, like remittances, would remain if more migrants were allowed in legally, but others, like the cheaper labor in the U.S. and surplus contributions to Social Security, would have to change. It's very hard to disrupt systems that result in financial benefits for powerful interests. This doesn't mean that we should not try, but it also means that we need to face reality and try to make the current system as fair as possible. Sara's going to talk now more about some specific things that we can do to help.
My name is Sara Terry, and from the beginning of this journey, which was noted began over 5 years ago, the planning team had a thought in the front of our minds, which was, what are we going to do with what we learn? Now we are here, each of us impacted in similar and in different ways. I believe I speak for all of us when I say we are moved to action by our experience. But what does that look like? As I reflect on my week in Honduras, the people I met, the stories that were shared, I see 3 areas where we can and should be working to make a difference. First, we need to understand the role that our country, both government and private sector, has played in creating a reality on the ground in Honduras that makes people risk everything to leave. During our seminar, we learned about the role of U.S. business interests in establishing the culture of corruption that persists to this day. As Julie said, follow the money. Sure, there's that history that many of us know from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, but what is the role these interests play today? And how can we advocate for positive policy change? I believe we are called to do more research, discernment, and action as advocates here in the U.S. Second, we can do more to support those who arrive here in Durham, where there is a large community of undocumented immigrants, many from Honduras. We learned of the harrowing journey and the many challenges faced upon arrival. It's a challenge to communicate, to find a job and a home, to access health care, and to build a life. You won't meet harder working people. They just need a fair shake. In January of this year, our Latin migration justice team hosted a lunch and learn that welcomed 4 organizations that are active in our community. El Futuro, which provides comprehensive medical health services for the Latino families. Siembra NC, which focuses on defending Latin communities from abusive employers and landlords and bad policies. El Centro Hispano, which provides a range of services and advocates for equity and inclusion, and Triangle Friends of Farm Workers, that supports farm worker union organizing and increases the awareness of the human costs of food production. These are all places that we can plug in, whether it's tutoring children after school, assisting with citizenship classes, or transporting farm workers to organizing meetings. Let's step up and do more. Third, we can do more to support organizations like Cristosal and the communities with which they partner to address the root causes of migration. As we saw firsthand in our visit to Amoa, a seaside town facing the compounded effects of climate change and limited economic opportunity, Hondurans are working to help Hondurans. They are doing fantastic work to build economic opportunity, create safer communities, adapt to the impacts of climate change, and support the returnees. By us supporting these boots on the ground, we can have a real impact. And so let's keep these connections alive. Last June, after my first Cristosal seminar on the roots of migration, my what's next was to return with more ERUUFians so we might build a team for action. I'm so glad I did, because I learned as much this year as I did the year before. As you've heard from the others, we met Hondurans who persevere and remain hopeful despite the many obstacles they face. I want to translate these learnings into action and be part of a positive change and continued hope for the people both here and in Honduras. Will you join us? We will be across the courtyard in the fellowship hall if you want to talk with any of us about this work. Please enjoy a brief slideshow from our trip. Thank you.
So it takes our time, our talent, our creativity, imagination, and our courage to make a difference in this world. And it also takes our very tangible offerings. As the greeters come forward, we will take up the morning's offering after we get our choir in place. We are running behind. Sometimes we are running later than normal, and sometimes I think that is just okay as it is, because it's important that we hear, that we listen, that we learn. And so sometimes that's just going to be what happens. This morning's offering, as I said earlier, will benefit the congregations and communities in Western North Carolina. If you do not have something to put into the offering pouches in this moment, you can go ahead. You may point your device at the screen. It will lead you to our giving page. You will also find cards in the pew racks that also have a QR code on it, and it'll lead you to our giving page. Just use the drop down on the screen to contribute to hurricane relief. And if for some reason this doesn't work for you, feel free to go into the office directly after service, and someone can help you with that process. Wendy?
Music is in all growing things, and underneath the silky wings of smallest insects there is stirred a pulse of air that must be heard. Music is in all growing things. Music is in all growing things, where silence lives and throbs and sings. If poet from the violent strings of his poor heart a measure flings, music is in all growing things.
We give thanks for all of the many, many blessings of being in beloved community together. And I'd like to invite up our presenters. Come around, and she has a mic for you, Anne. Just to thank them for their efforts, their work, and their participation in traveling to Honduras together. And they are also, some of them are wearing some special T-shirts and that were given to us by the group. One of the women that was referred to, who was president of an organization that after she migrated came back with her children. And can you all turn around again and you can translate, Anne, what this says?
Yes, the back of the shirt says that human rights don't have borders.
Yes. Yeah, so let's offer our thanks for... So much learning was done, and as they said, they will be tabling in the fellowship halls. I hope you'll join them. You all can be seated again, and we'll turn it over to
Please
you. I'll take
rise
it.
in body or spirit. Join us in the closing hymn, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place, number 1008 in the Teal hymnal. We'll sing the first two verses, and the lyrics are on the screen. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy
No, I was reminded of tomorrow is Indigenous Peoples Day, and I was reminded of something that I learned in a book I read about stories, and it was written by someone who's Indigenous, who said that once you've heard a story, you can no longer not hear it. And so I invite you to keep that in mind based on what you heard today. Our closing words in honor of Indigenous people throughout the Americas are from the poem Remembered by Joy Harjo. She's of Muskogee Creek Nation and was the U.S. Poet Laureate from 2019 to 2022. And this is from that poem. Remember, you are all people, and all people, you. Remember, you are this universe, and this universe is you. Remember, all is in motion, is growing, is you. Remember, language comes from this. Remember the dance language is, that life is. Remember. Go in peace, go in love, and go with deep listening. Amen, Ashe, and may it be so.